Our daughter deserves the truth. Xiao Zhan finally tells her everything. The silence in the house had grown heavier each passing night. The kind of silence that did not bring peace but instead echoed with everything left unsaid. Xiao Zhan sat on the edge of his daughter's bed watching the soft rise and fall of her chest as she drifted to sleep. Her tiny hands clutched her favorite bunny, the one Wang Ibor had bought during their family trip to Jeju Island. It had been 2 weeks since Xiao Zhan's emotional interview shook the world. His confession that he had loved Wang Ibor in private and had been hidden in public had divided the fandom and turned their already complex love story into something even more fragile. The response had been overwhelming. People cried, people fought, and some simply walked away from the fantasy they once held dear. But the one person who had not responded was the one person Xiao Zhan had been waiting for. Wang Ibor. No calls. No texts. No knock on the door. He had not come. Not to explain, not to apologize. Not even to ask how their daughter was handling all of it. And yet, Xiao Zhan could not bring himself to hate him. Because deep inside he knew. Wang Ibor was hurting too. But while the world debated their love and loss, while journalists dissected their every word, there was someone else caught in between it all. Someone small. Someone innocent. Their daughter. She had started asking questions. Questions Xiao Zhan could no longer ignore. Where is Daddy Ibor? Why does everyone look at me when we go to the store? Why do you cry when you think I am asleep? Why do people online say we are broken? Xiao Zhan had no more stories to soften the truth. No more bedtime tales to patch the cracks in their family. And that night as she lay in bed beside her bunny, he made a choice. She deserved the truth. Not the public version. Not the filtered one. But the truth. As raw and as simple as he could offer it. Because their daughter was no longer too young to feel. And certainly not too blind to see. The next morning he woke her with pancakes and strawberries. Her favorite. They ate in silence. She kept looking at him the way she did when she sensed something important was coming. And when they finished, he took her hand gently, led her to the sofa, and sat beside her. There was no dramatic music. No prepared speech. Just a father. Ready to finally stop pretending. He began softly. Do you remember when you used to draw pictures of us in the park? All 3 of us holding hands. And you always put a sun in the corner. Do you remember what you told me that sun meant? She nodded slowly. It meant we were happy. Xiao Zhan smiled and looked down. We were happy. We were. He paused. His voice caught in his throat. I want to tell you something about Daddy Ibor and me. Something I should have told you earlier. Not because I wanted to hide it from you. But because I thought you were too young to understand. But I realize now. You already feel it. She leaned into him. He wrapped his arm around her. And continued. Daddy Ibor and I. We were not just friends. We were in love. Real love. The kind of love that makes you laugh when you are tired. And cry when you are scared. He was my best friend. And for a long time. He was the person I wanted to spend my whole life with. Her eyes widened. But she said nothing. She was listening. So deeply listening. We had to keep it a secret. Because the world we work in, the industry we live in, it does not always welcome love that looks like ours. And we did not want anyone to hurt you. Or to hurt us. So we hid. For years. We hid behind smiles and stage lights and interviews where we pretended to be only colleagues. But behind all that, we were a family. He looked at her and smiled sadly. Do you remember that rainy day when you were sick and Daddy Ibor made you laugh by wearing your princess crown? That was not fake. That was love. Real. Unfiltered. Ours. Her eyes welled up. But she nodded. What happened then? She asked. Did he stop loving us? Xiao Zhan felt his chest tighten. He reached for her hand. No, my love. He never stopped loving us. But sometimes love gets scared. Sometimes people hide not because they do not love, but because they are afraid of what love will cost them. He was afraid. And I was tired of being a secret. So I walked away. Not because I stopped loving him, But because I started loving myself too. She whispered. Do you still love him? Xiao Zhan looked away for a moment, then back into her eyes. I do. I always will. But love is not just about how we feel. It is also about what we choose. And right now, we are choosing to live apart. She looked down at her hands. Then asked the question he had been dreading. Did I do something wrong? Did I make him leave? Xiao Zhan pulled her into his arms so tightly he thought his heart might break from the weight of it. No. You did nothing wrong. You are the reason we lasted as long as we did. You gave us hope. You gave us joy. And even now, you give us strength. Never ever believe this was your fault. He kissed the top of her head. And they sat there, wrapped in silence. But this time, a silence that felt honest. That evening, she drew a new picture. It was of two houses. One had Xiao Zhan at the window. The other had Wang Ibor holding a letter. Between the houses, she drew herself, standing on a hill, smiling at both of them. The sun was still in the corner. When she showed it to Xiao Zhan, he cried. Not because it hurt, but because she understood more than he ever expected. That night he posted a message on his private account. She knows. And her heart is still whole. Children do not break from truth. They break from lies. The message went viral. Not because he named names, but because the world could read between every line. Meanwhile, Wang Ibor, who had been silent for days, finally made a move. He attended a charity event for children and education. The press was not invited, but a staff member leaked a video that stunned the world. In it, Wang Ibor was asked by a child, "What is the bravest thing you have ever done?" He paused, looked down, then said quietly, "Letting someone I love go, because I was too afraid to fight for him." The internet broke again. That night, Xiao Zhan received a letter. Delivered by hand. No media. No fans. Just a single sheet of paper. And a handwriting he had memorized long ago. It read, "I do not know how to be brave, but I am learning. Tell her I miss her smile. And tell her that the sun she draws in every picture reminds me that love can still rise, even when everything feels lost." Xiao Zhan folded the letter carefully and placed it in their daughter's memory box. One day, he would give it to her. But for now, he was content knowing she had the truth. The real truth. Not the gossip. Not the scandal. Just the love they all shared. The kind of love that might never be perfect, but would always be theirs. As the days passed, the media storm softened. The fan wars calmed. And the world began to adjust to the fact that Wang Ibor and Xiao Zhan, though apart, were still connected by something deeper than romance. They were family. Their daughter, now armed with the truth, began to draw even more. Her sketches started filling the house again. Pictures of three people, sometimes standing together, sometimes apart, but always under the same sun. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. For now. Because sometimes, the bravest thing two people can do is tell the truth and trust that love, even in pieces, can still shine. She still draws us together. Wang Ibor returns, but is it too late? The weather had changed in Beijing. The skies were heavy with grey clouds and the wind whispered secrets through narrow alleys. Inside the quiet home Xiao Zhan now shared alone with their daughter. The walls were still the same shade of soft cream. But the silence was different now. It was no longer filled with fear or hesitation. It was filled with truth. Since the day he sat their daughter down and told her everything, Xiao Zhan had felt something shift. Not in the world outside, but within himself. He had expected tears, anger, maybe even confusion. Instead, she had wrapped her arms around him and said, "Thank you for trusting me." And since then, she had started drawing again. Not the usual broken houses or sad stick figures standing apart, but the three of them, together, always under a glowing yellow sun. Her latest drawing was pinned to the fridge. A scene of the kitchen, with Xiao Zhan flipping pancakes, Wang Ibor sitting at the counter watching, and their daughter between them, smiling wide. Xiao Zhan stared at it every morning, not because it made him sad, but because it reminded him of the warmth they once had, and maybe, just maybe, could still have again. But he was not foolish. He knew drawings were not reality, and he had not heard from Wang Ibor. Not since the letter. That letter, still folded and tucked into their daughter's memory box, had become a quiet symbol of a love suspended in time. Then, one rainy afternoon, everything changed. He was making tea when the doorbell rang. He did not rush to answer. People rarely visited unannounced. And when he opened the door, he froze. There he was. Wang Ibor, drenched from the rain, hair clinging to his forehead, eyes red, hands shaking. For a moment, neither spoke. The world around them seemed to pause, like it was holding its breath. Then Wang Ibor said, "I need to see her." Xiao Zhan stepped aside. Inside, their daughter was sitting on the floor with her markers, drawing. As always. When she looked up and saw him, she gasped, "Daddy Ibor." She ran to him. He dropped to his knees, caught her in his arms, and held her like he was afraid she might disappear. "I missed you," she whispered. "I missed you more," he replied. Xiao Zhan watched, heart thudding, unsure whether to feel relief or heartbreak, because this moment, though beautiful, did not erase the silence, the distance, the years of hidden pain. Later that night, after she had fallen asleep in Wang Ibor's lap, he and Xiao Zhan sat across from each other at the dining table. No cameras, no fans, just them. Xiao Zhan spoke first. "Why now?" Wang Ibor looked at him, then down at the table. "Because I saw her drawing. Because I heard what you said in the interview. Because I read what people said. But most of all, because I could not stand being a ghost in my own story anymore. You let me carry the blame. I know. I hated myself for it every day. But I thought, if I stayed away, you would heal faster. I never imagined you would tell her. I never imagined she would forgive me this easily. She is a child. She forgives because she loves. But she also remembers. And if you disappear again, I do not know if she will recover." Wang Ibor reached across the table. But Xiao Zhan did not move. "I am not here to fix everything tonight," he said. "I am just here to ask if I can be part of her life again. And maybe, eventually, yours too." Xiao Zhan looked into his eyes. Eyes he had once fallen in love with under dim stage lights. Eyes that now looked older, wiser, more broken. "I do not have an answer for that. But I can promise you this. She deserves consistency. And if you are not ready to give her that, then do not come back at all." Wang Ibor nodded slowly. "I am ready. More than I have ever been." The next few weeks were different. Not magical. Not easy. But honest. Wang Ibor started visiting. Picking her up from school. Taking her to the park. Helping with homework. He never stayed over. He never pushed boundaries. He was simply there. And Xiao Zhan watched. Every step. Every smile. Every hesitant moment. Then came the day they both dreaded. Parent-teacher day. They arrived together. Not holding hands. Not wearing smiles. Just standing side by side. The teachers were kind. The parents stared. Some whispered. Some took photos. But their daughter. She held both their hands. And introduced them proudly. "These are my daddies." The teacher smiled. The room fell quiet. And for once, there was no judgment. Only applause. That night, back at home, Wang Ibor sat on the couch. Their daughter asleep upstairs. Xiao Zhan handed him a cup of tea. And sat beside him. "She is not afraid," he said. "She loves with no filter." Wang Ibor nodded. "I want to be that brave. I want to be what she believes I am." Then prove it. Not to me, but to her. Every day. They sat in silence again. But this time, it felt like the beginning of something. Not the past. Not the pain. But something new. A few days later, Wang Ibor surprised Xiao Zhan with something he never expected. A public post. No names. No faces. Just a photo. A child's drawing of 3 people. A sun. And a caption. My reason to grow. The internet exploded. Fans speculated. Argued. Some celebrated. Some rolled their eyes. But Xiao Zhan. He just smiled. He knew that drawing. It was the one pinned to their fridge. He texted Wang Ibor. You chose light. Finally. Wang Ibor replied. You taught me how. And slowly. Without press releases. Without announcements. They began to rebuild. Not as lovers. Not yet. But as co-parents.